When you think of The Fifth Element, you remember the colors, the chaos, the laughter. But behind that world of wonder, some of its brightest stars are no longer with us. Some were taken too soon by unexpected tragedy, while others quietly disappeared from Hollywood's harsh spotlight. What really happened to them? Let's find out. John Neville as General Statert. You probably blinked and missed him. General Statert, the calm commander who faced a planet-sized disaster without flinching. He wasn't loud, but his presence said it all. That's John Neville, dignity wrapped in steel, a soldier who understood that courage sometimes means keeping your voice steady when the world's about to end. But the real John Neville? His battles started long before the cameras rolled. In the 1950s, he was London's theater heartthrob, the kind of Shakespearean star critics called the next Olivier. And then, nothing. The roles stopped coming. The doors closed. Out of pride and survival, he left everything and moved to Canada. Imagine that, from West End fame to starting over in a cold new country. He clawed his way back, rebuilding his name from scratch. He ran theaters, directed plays, even went broke doing what he loved. But then, the adventures of Baron Munchausen came along, his wild, imaginative comeback. Later, the X-Files made him cool again, and Canada finally honored him with the Order of Canada in 2006. But the applause faded when Alzheimer's began to erase his memories piece by piece. John Neville played General Statert at 72 in The Fifth Element, 1997. He passed away on November 19, 2011, at 86, surrounded by family. His net worth, about $5 million, could never measure the value of a man who lived, lost, and kept creating anyway. John Bluthal as Professor Piccoli. Before Bruce Willis ever showed up, The Fifth Element began quietly, in a desert temple, with Professor Piccoli brushing dust off secrets older than time. His eyes lit up like a kid discovering the universe. And that moment? It was pure John Bluthal, curious, kind, and just a little lost in wonder, like he'd finally found the role he was born for. John's real story, though, was far from cinematic. He escaped war-torn Poland as a child, landing in Australia with nothing but a thick accent and dreams too big for his pockets. In those early years, the industry didn't welcome outsiders. He was too foreign, too odd. So, he took what he could get: silly comedy sketches, background roles, even voice work just to stay in the game. When he moved to England, the fight only got harder. He was laughed at, rejected for sounding too different. But John didn't quit. He turned his voice into a weapon, funny, sharp, unforgettable. He starred alongside the Beatles in A Hard Day's Night and made millions laugh in The Vicar of Dibley. Every smile he gave the world came from a place that once knew heartbreak. John Bluthal played Professor Piccoli when he was 68 years old in The Fifth Element, 1997. He passed away on November 15, 2018, at 89 from old age. His estimated net worth was $3 million, the quiet reward of a man who turned exile into laughter and loneliness into legacy. Ian Holm as Father Vito Cornelius. You remember Father Cornelius, the nervous priest with all the answers and none of the confidence? In The Fifth Element, he's that fragile line between faith and chaos, the man who carries the truth of the universe in trembling hands. Behind his calm voice was fear. Fear of failure, fear of what would happen if he was wrong. But in real life, Ian Holm knew that fear all too well. He was once one of Britain's top stage actors, until panic struck. Literally. One night, stage fright hit him so hard that he couldn't perform again for years. Imagine that, your greatest gift suddenly turning on you. He thought his career was over, yet he found his second life on screen. Alien turned him into a legend. That cold, unsettling android Ash still gives people chills. Then came Chariots of Fire, and suddenly, the world remembered Ian Holm. He even got an Oscar nomination. And years later, The Lord of the Rings made him immortal as Bilbo Baggins. But behind those roles, his body was fighting back. Cancer, Parkinson's, and decades of exhaustion. Still, he never stopped. Acting was the air he breathed. Ian Holm played Father Vito Cornelius when he was 66 in The Fifth Element, 1997. He passed away on June 19, 2020, at 88 years old, from Parkinson's complications, leaving behind a quiet fortune of $10 million and a legacy that refused to die. Al Matthews as General Tudor. When Al Matthews appeared as General Tudor in The Fifth Element, you didn't need special effects to feel his power. That booming voice, that stare, it came from real experience. He wasn't just acting authority, he was authority. You could tell this man had seen things Hollywood could never script. Al wasn't born into fame. He was a real U.S. Marine, a man who'd lived discipline and danger before ever stepping onto a movie set. But when he left the military, the world didn't exactly roll out a red carpet. Casting agents told him he was too intense, too rough. He worked as a radio DJ, sang soul music in bars, and fought to prove he was more than a stereotype. Then, everything changed. Aliens made him immortal. Sergeant Apone, the ultimate space soldier. He followed with Superman 3 and Tomorrow Never Dies, but the struggle never really ended. Hollywood's doors didn't stay open for long. Racism, injuries, and exhaustion chased him for decades. Yet he never lost that fire, that proud voice that could fill a room. Al Matthews played General Tudor at 55 in The Fifth Element, 1997. He passed away on September 22, 2018, at 75, after years of illness. He spent his last years in Spain, enjoying quiet days and music, with an estimated net worth of $2 million. A soldier's peace after a lifetime of battles. Brian James as General Monroe. The moment General Monroe steps into Corbin Dallas's chaotic apartment, barking orders while dodging explosions, you can't help but smirk. Because that's classic Brian James. Loud, sharp, and larger than life. In The Fifth Element, he finally got to play someone decent, a rare break from decades of being Hollywood's favorite villain. But off-screen, that typecasting was a curse. Brian was stuck in a box he couldn't break out of. Every time he tried for a hero role, producers laughed. No one believes you're the good guy. It wore him down. He took whatever came his way just to survive. Even after Blade Runner made him iconic as the replicant Leon, the shadow of bad guy followed him everywhere. He hustled non-stop, 48 hours, Tango and Cash, Red Heat, Enemy Mine, over 100 films. But behind that steady stream of work were unpaid bills, broken promises, and exhaustion. The pressure never let up. Friends said he was burned out, juggling too much, never saying no. His heart paid the price. Brian James played General Monroe at 52 in The Fifth Element, 1997. He passed away just 2 years later, on August 7, 1999, from a heart attack at 54. His estimated net worth was $1 million. Not much for a man who gave everything to every scene and never got the rest he deserved. Luke Perry as Billy Masterson. Long before Riverdale or 90210, Luke Perry walked into a desert in The Fifth Element, a young archaeologist face to face with secrets older than mankind. There's something poetic about it. A man searching for meaning in the ruins of another world. He didn't say much, but that quiet wonder in his eyes said everything. Curiosity, fear, and a spark that never went out. Luke Perry's real life wasn't all that different. Before Hollywood fame, he was just a small-town kid from Ohio working in a doorknob factory. He auditioned over 200 times before landing a single role. Most people would have quit, but Luke kept showing up, chasing something bigger than luck. That patience finally paid off when Beverly Hills 90210 turned him into Dylan McKay, the brooding bad boy every teenager fell for. But fame came with chains. He got trapped in his own image, the cool guy, the teen idol. Hollywood didn't want to see him grow up. He struggled to land serious roles, took hits from critics, and battled the anxiety of fading relevance. Yet, he reinvented himself with Riverdale, playing Archie's grounded, loving father, the kind of man Dylan McKay could never be. Luke Perry played Billy Masterson when he was 31 in The Fifth Element, 1997. He passed away on March 4, 2019 at 52 after a massive stroke. At his death, his net worth was $10 million, built from decades on television, and from a heart that never stopped believing in second chances. Tommy "Tiny" Lister Jr. as President Lindbergh. Who could forget that president? Towering, serious, yet oddly warm, trying to hold the universe together while chaos unfolded. Tommy "Tiny" Lister Jr. made President Lindbergh unforgettable. The irony? The man best known for playing bullies finally got to play the most powerful peacemaker in the galaxy. But Tommy's real fight was never in space. It was with Hollywood itself. Standing 6 feet 5 inches, with a wrestler's build and a villain's glare, he was constantly typecast. Casting directors saw thug, not actor. He spent years battling that image, watching doors close while his bills piled up. The fame from Friday as Debo only made it harder. Audiences feared him when all he wanted was to make them laugh. He jumped between movies, wrestling, and TV, just trying to stay visible. From The Dark Knight to low-budget action flicks, he worked non-stop, even through injuries, diabetes, and lawsuits. And still, behind the tough guy image, he was known for kindness and humor. Everyone on set said the same thing. Tiny had the biggest heart in the room. Tommy "Tiny" Lister Jr. played President Lindbergh when he was 39 years old in The Fifth Element, 1997. He passed away on December 10, 2020, at 62 from heart disease. His net worth was around $100,000, a humble end for a man who made audiences laugh, flinch, and cheer, often all in the same scene. Bruce Willis as Corbin Dallas. By the time Bruce Willis became Corbin Dallas, he was already the face of action cinema. But The Fifth Element gave him something different. Here, he wasn't just fighting villains. He was fighting boredom, loneliness, and the weight of a life gone nowhere. Watching him pilot that cab through chaos felt like watching Bruce himself. Still unstoppable, still trying to outrun time. Bruce's real journey wasn't any lighter. He started out tending bar in New York, rejected at auditions more times than he could count. Then moonlighting changed everything. Suddenly, he was the wisecracking TV star America loved. But after Die Hard, the world wanted only one version of him, the action hero, and the pressure to keep delivering blockbusters nearly broke him. Behind the swagger and one-liners, there was a man fighting exhaustion, studio battles, and his own limits. Some films flopped. Others saved him, like The Sixth Sense, reminding everyone he wasn't just muscle, he was depth. But in 2022, tragedy struck. Bruce was diagnosed with aphasia, a cruel illness that took away his voice, the very thing that made him iconic. Bruce Willis played Corbin Dallas at 42 in The Fifth Element, 1997. In 2025, he is 70 years old, retired from acting and surrounded by his family. His estimated net worth stands at $250 million, a testament to a man who gave his entire life to the movies and left behind more than just explosions. He left heart. Milla Jovovich as Lilu. When Milla Jovovich crashed through that lab wall and whispered "Lilu Dallas multipass," she didn't just steal the scene. She rewrote what a sci-fi heroine could be. But behind the glowing orange hair and otherworldly smile was a 21-year-old fighting for her place in a world that didn't believe in her yet. Luc Besson pushed her to her limits. She trained for months, learning a 400-word alien language, perfecting stunts, working until her body gave out. Between takes, she cried in secret, convinced she wasn't good enough. Critics didn't make it easier. They mocked her accent, her delivery, her very presence. The movie made her famous, but it also scarred her with doubt that would follow her for years. After that, she chased acceptance with everything she had. The Messenger. The story of Joan of Arc brought her critical respect and near emotional collapse. She bled for that role, both literally and figuratively, reliving pain she hadn't healed from. Her marriage to Besson ended soon after filming. Hollywood labeled her the action girl, and for years she carried that burden in the Resident Evil series. Endless training, dangerous stunts, concussions, broken ribs. Behind the scenes, she was running on painkillers and fear that one accident could end it all. Yet she never stopped, because quitting, for Milla, meant disappearing. Milla Jovovich played Lilu at 21 in The Fifth Element, 1997. In 2025, she's 50, a survivor of the business that once tried to break her. With an $80 million net worth and a loving family, she's proof that strength isn't born. It's forged, one heartbreak at a time. Gary Oldman as Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. Only Gary Oldman could turn a corporate villain with a plastic haircut and a glass skull cap into something unforgettable. His Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg wasn't just evil. He was art. Every twitch, every breath, every grin felt like chaos wrapped in genius. But behind that unforgettable performance was a man battling demons far darker than anything Luc Besson could write. Before The Fifth Element, Gary had already become Hollywood's go-to villain. The tortured punk of Sid and Nancy, the corrupt cop in Leon, the professional, the haunted Dracula who made audiences tremble. But that success came with a dark price. He was trapped by the very roles that made him famous. Casting directors stopped seeing the man. They only saw the madness. Behind the camera, his battles were far worse. Years of drinking blurred days and memories, costing him marriages and nearly his career. On set, he would hide the exhaustion, the shakes, the fear that one more drink might be the last. When his directorial debut collapsed and left him nearly broke, Gary admitted he'd hit rock bottom. Alone, misunderstood, and terrified he'd never climb out again. Then came redemption. He sobered up. He rebuilt from the ruins, one role at a time. From Sirius Black to Commissioner Gordon, he earned back what fame had stolen: dignity and control. And with Darkest Hour, he finally stood tall, no longer the villain, but the man who conquered his demons. Gary Oldman played Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg at 39 in The Fifth Element, 1997. In 2025, at 67, he's still acting, but softer. His fortune may be $40 million, but his real wealth lies in the quiet peace of a man who finally stopped running from himself. Chris Tucker as Ruby Road. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has ever lit up a movie quite like Chris Tucker did as Ruby Road. He didn't just play the role, he ignited it. Dressed in leopard print and screaming through chaos, he made sci-fi history with nothing but a microphone and pure madness. Yet when the lights faded and the noise died down, the man behind that wild energy was fighting battles no one could see. After The Fifth Element, Chris skyrocketed with Rush Hour. He became the highest-paid actor in Hollywood for a moment, $25 million a movie. But the pressure crushed him. His faith, his values, his fear of being misunderstood pushed him to walk away when everyone else would have stayed. He refused scripts, turned down deals, and disappeared. What looked like confidence was really exhaustion. Then came the IRS. Years of bad management left him millions in debt. Lawsuits, tax liens, humiliation. The world that once cheered for him now mocked him for losing it all. He went from Beverly Hills to nearly broke, still smiling in interviews but fighting to breathe behind the charm. Fame had given him everything, and taken it all back. Chris tried to find peace through stand-up again, returning to small stages where no one screamed his name anymore. He talked about faith, mistakes, and redemption, using comedy to heal. He said he didn't want to curse anymore, that laughter should lift people, not wound them. But even then, the pressure of comparison haunted him. When's Rush Hour 4? Everyone kept asking. Chris Tucker played Ruby Road at 26 in The Fifth Element, 1997. In 2025, he's 54, older, wiser, and softer-spoken. His net worth sits around $5 million, but the real story isn't about money. It's about a man who walked away from the spotlight and somehow found light anyway. Lee Evans as Fog. In The Fifth Element, Lee Evans appeared only briefly as Fog, a frantic, bumbling technician drowning in chaos. He gave everything to make people laugh, so much that it nearly destroyed him. On stage, Lee was a storm. He shook, screamed, slipped, and sweated until he was soaked through. Every show left him drained, trembling, and gasping for air backstage. He used to joke that his suits were so drenched, no dry cleaner would take them. But it wasn't funny anymore. The exhaustion was real. His body couldn't keep up with the chaos his audience demanded. He tried to slow down by moving into film, but Hollywood didn't understand him. Mouse Hunt made people laugh. There's Something About Mary made him famous. But the pressure to stay funny became unbearable. When a few projects failed, producers turned their backs, and the same industry that once called him brilliant began to forget his name. By 2014, after decades of constant adrenaline, Lee broke. On television, he quietly said he was retiring to spend time with family, but insiders knew the truth. He was mentally and physically spent. He'd suffered panic attacks before every show, sometimes collapsing in the dressing room. Lee Evans played Fog in The Fifth Element, 1997, at age 33. In 2025, at 61, he lives quietly in Essex, far from the spotlight that once consumed him. His net worth, around $8 million, means little to a man who gave too much of himself to comedy. Charlie Creed Miles as David. You probably don't remember David from The Fifth Element, the nervous apprentice in Father Cornelius's temple. But that small role belonged to a man who lived one of the toughest roads in British acting. Charlie Creed Miles wasn't built for fame. He was built for survival. And that made his journey painfully real. In the 90s, Charlie bounced between low-budget UK projects, barely scraping by. He played addicts, criminals, and lost men, because that's what he understood best. When Gary Oldman cast him in Nil by Mouth, critics praised the raw pain he brought to the screen. What they didn't know was that he wasn't pretending. The darkness he carried into those roles came from years of rejection and frustration in an industry that had no space for quiet talents like him. Hollywood never called. While his co-stars from The Fifth Element became global icons, Charlie stayed in small London sets, fighting for parts that barely paid the bills. The British film scene was brutal, low funding, fierce competition, and endless waiting. There were years when his phone didn't ring. He once said the hardest part wasn't poverty, it was invisibility. Still, he kept working. Peaky Blinders and Ripper Street gave him a second wind, not fame, but respect. He'd survived addiction rumors, career droughts, and the collapse of several projects he'd bet his life on. Through it all, he held onto his craft like a lifeline. Acting, for him, wasn't a dream anymore. It was therapy. Charlie Creed Miles played David at 25 in The Fifth Element, 1997. In 2025, he's 53, still working quietly, raising his daughter Esme, now a star herself. His net worth may only be $2 million, but his legacy is different. He's proof that you don't have to be famous to be unforgettable. Mai Wen as Diva Plavalaguna. When Mai Wen appeared as the blue alien diva in The Fifth Element, no one knew she was living her own tragedy. Under heavy makeup and an otherworldly costume, she was trying to hide heartbreak that cut deeper than any role could show. Because her husband, director Luc Besson, had fallen in love with another woman, her co-star, Mila Jovovich. Maïwenn had been only 15 when she became pregnant with Besson's child. She was 16 when she gave birth, and still a teenager when she followed him to movie sets around the world. He had promised her stardom, but what she got was abandonment, right in the middle of the film that was supposed to define their lives. The world saw fantasy. She lived humiliation. After the film wrapped, she vanished. She went home to France with her daughter, broke and forgotten. Depression followed. Years passed before she dared to step behind a camera. Her first films were raw, bleeding with emotion that critics called too personal. They were right. Every frame was her pain. Her comeback film, Police, won at Cannes. But success didn't erase the scars. In interviews, she spoke of years of therapy, self-hatred, and the fear of being dismissed as Besson's ex-wife. Even happiness seemed temporary. In 2024, tragedy struck again. Her second husband, Jean-Yves Lefeur, died in her arms. Her words were simple. He left on a Sunday morning. I am destroyed. Maïwenn played Diva Plavalaguna in The Fifth Element, 1997, at age 21. In 2025, at 49, she stands as one of France's boldest filmmakers, with a net worth of $10 million. Her success came through pain, and every film she creates is still a quiet echo of the girl who once wept behind the mask of a blue alien. Christopher Fairbank as Mactalbura. In The Fifth Element, Christopher Fairbank played Mactalbura, the jittery factory engineer who nervously rebuilds a weapon for Zorg. He's small, cautious, trembling under pressure, but still trying to do what's right, just like Fairbank in real life. He'd been the man everyone overlooked, surviving in an industry that never made space for him. His beginnings were brutal. Casting agents told him he'd never be a star because of his acne scars. They didn't see talent, only flaws. He worked odd jobs, took walk-on parts, and sometimes went months without auditions. When he finally broke through as Moxie in Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, it looked like his moment had come. But the price was heavy. The character followed him everywhere. After that, he always played drunks, thieves, broken men, and somewhere along the line he began to believe that was all he was worth. He worked constantly, but rarely in the spotlight. Roles in Batman, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Guardians of the Galaxy gave him brief visibility, but never peace. Behind the camera, he fought with insomnia and chronic fatigue, worn down by decades of instability. Christopher Fairbank played Mactalbura in The Fifth Element, 1997, at age 43. In 2025, at 72, he still acts occasionally, though mostly in voice work. His net worth, about $4 million, means little compared to what he lost. Recognition, health, and the joy of believing his craft was enough. So many stars from The Fifth Element gave us unforgettable moments, and their stories still echo long after the credits rolled. Which actor's story moved you the most? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories.